If your ex ever invites you to her wedding, think carefully before you RSVP, especially if her maid of honor already knows your name and ends up being the first woman to kiss you. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, between a jury duty notice for someone who had not lived in my apartment for 6 years and a grocery store coupon promising 40 cents off laundry detergent. I almost threw it away with both. The envelope stopped me. My full name was written across the front, in handwriting I had once watched fill birthday cards, grocery lists, and the margins of recipes. Jenna Hart. Leela had always made the J too large. 3 years and 4 months had passed since I had last seen her in person, but apparently my brain had preserved useless information with excellent fidelity. I stood in my kitchen, holding the envelope, and told myself that recognizing my ex-girlfriend's handwriting did not qualify as an emotional event. Then I opened it with a butter knife. The invitation was expensive without being obnoxious. Thick cream paper, dark green lettering, a line drawing of an old brick building along the bottom. Lila Grant and Oliver Chen request the pleasure of your company. I read the first line twice, not because I had forgotten Lila was engaged. Mutual friends had made that impossible. Her engagement had reached me 11 months earlier through a photograph in our college group chat. Lila had been standing beside a man with kind eyes and terrible posture, both of them laughing while she held up her left hand. I had responded with a heart. One heart. Nothing else. This had seemed mature. Now I stared at the card in my kitchen and discovered that maturity was apparently less stable when delivered by mail. There was a smaller note behind the invitation. Jenna, I know this may seem strange. I considered not sending it, but leaving you out deliberately felt stranger. You mattered to me for 4 years. You mattered to my family, too. We have enough people in common that pretending those years never happened has started to feel more awkward than acknowledging them. There is no expectation here, truly. But if you want to come, I would be glad to see you. Lila. I read that 3 times. Then I put the invitation face down on the counter. Then I turned it over again. My phone buzzed. Mara, please tell me you got it. Mara was one of the shared friends Lila's note had politely referred to as enough people in common. She had been my roommate during my first year after college, and one of Lila's closest friends since graduate school. She had also apparently been waiting beside her phone for the postal service to detonate my afternoon. I typed, "Got what?" 3 dots appeared instantly. Mara, don't do that. Me, I receive a lot of mail. Mara, Jenna. Me, some of it very important. Mara, Jenna. I took a photograph of the invitation and sent it. Her call came before the image finished uploading. Well? Well, what? Are you going? I've had it for approximately 4 minutes. You've been broken up for more than 3 years. That's interesting, because the invitation appears to have been delivered today. She groaned. I hate when you do this. Answer questions accurately? Turn into a customer service chatbot whenever you have feelings. I don't have feelings. I have mail. Are you going? I looked at Lila's handwritten note. I don't know. That's better. Better than what? Better than pretending you accidentally received an invitation addressed to you in Lila's handwriting and felt nothing. I leaned against the counter. Mara knew me too well to be useful in moments like this. Is she actually expecting me? I asked. Expecting isn't the word. She meant what she wrote. You've discussed this. Of course we've discussed this. Excellent. I love discovering I'm a committee topic. You're not a committee topic. She asked if inviting you would be cruel. That silenced me. Mara continued more gently. I told her I didn't know. I also told her you're an adult and she could let you decide. That was irritatingly reasonable. Oliver knows? Yes. And he's fine with his fiancée inviting the woman she dated for 4 years? He isn't 12. That wasn't my question. He knows who you are. He knows why she invited you. He's fine. I rubbed the edge of the invitation with my thumb. The wedding was 6 weeks away, at a converted textile mill outside Providence. Friday welcome drinks, Saturday ceremony and reception, Sunday brunch. A whole weekend. You'll be there? I asked. Obviously. Ben? Obviously. Keisha? Yes. Half the people I would have wanted as emotional body armor were going. That made attending more reasonable. Unfortunately, it also made refusing feel more like avoidance. I'll think about it. Mara made a skeptical noise. What? You don't think about things, Jenna. You quietly decide, then spend 3 days constructing arguments proving the decision was inevitable. That is thinking. That's litigation. I'm not a lawyer. You missed your calling. I ended the call before she could become more accurate. For 2 days, the RSVP card sat beside my fruit bowl. Yes, joyfully accepts. No, regretfully declines. I disliked both adverbs. Joyfully seemed unhinged. Regretfully seemed dishonest. On Thursday night, after 2 glasses of wine and 40 minutes of reorganizing a cabinet that had not needed reorganizing, I checked yes. I did not do it because I wanted to prove something to Lila. At least, that was the first lie I told myself. The second was that I was going entirely for Mara and the others. The third was that curiosity had nothing to do with it. The truer answer was messier. I had spent 3 years treating the breakup like a border I had crossed once and would never approach again. I had changed neighborhoods, changed jobs, lost touch with people I associated too closely with Leela. I had refused invitations to 2 birthday dinners because I knew she would be there, then told myself I simply hated crowded restaurants. I called all of that dignity. At 31, I had begun to suspect some of it might have been fear wearing a respectable coat. So I mailed the card. 6 weeks later, I was driving toward Providence with the distinct impression that the respectable coat had been smarter than I was. The wedding hotel occupied a renovated bank building downtown, all high ceilings, brass elevators, and furniture designed to look more comfortable than it was. I arrived just after 4 on Friday with 1 dress bag, 1 overnight suitcase, and enough emotional restraint to qualify as carry-on luggage. Mara spotted me before I reached reception. She crossed the lobby at a near run and wrapped both arms around me. You came! You sound surprised. I've known you 12 years. Fair. She held me at arm's length. You look good. You say that like I survived a maritime disaster. You sort of did. Mara. Fine, sorry. No breakup metaphors. A man in a navy suit stepped around us carrying 2 cardboard boxes labeled glassware. Mara pointed after him. They're already moving things to the mill. Welcome drinks start at 6:30. Lila's mother has asked about you 3 times. That landed more softly than I expected. How is Ruth? Exactly the same. She will feed you within 4 minutes. I can handle Ruth. Can you handle Lila? I looked toward the elevators. I assume she hasn't developed laser vision? You know what I mean. I'll be fine. Mara gave me the expression she reserved for statements she intended to challenge later. I checked in, went upstairs, unpacked, showered, and changed into wide-leg black trousers and a rust-colored silk blouse. I spent too long deciding whether the blouse looked like something I had chosen for myself or something I had chosen because an ex might see me in it. Eventually, I accepted that clothes could have multiple stakeholders. At 6:20, I rode downstairs. The welcome drinks were being held in a courtyard behind the hotel, beneath strings of small amber lights. The evening was warm for October. Someone had arranged low bowls of white flowers across the tables, and the bar was already surrounded by people pretending not to calculate how much the weekend must have cost. I saw Lila almost immediately. Some people changed dramatically after a breakup. New haircut, new posture, new person entirely. Lila had changed in smaller ways. Her hair was shorter, ending just above her shoulders. She wore a green jumpsuit I would once have told her made her eyes look unfair. There were faint lines at the corners of those eyes that had not existed when we were 28. She was laughing with Oliver. That was the first time I saw him outside photographs. He was tall, lean, wearing glasses and holding 2 drinks while Lila gestured with both hands. His attention stayed on her, even when someone touched his elbow trying to get past. Nothing about them looked staged. I was relieved, then irritated that I had needed relief, then irritated by the irritation. Jenna. Ruth Grant reached me before Lila did. Lila's mother still wore her silver hair in the same chin-length bob. She hugged me hard enough to press the breath from my lungs. Oh, sweetheart. The word almost undid me. I had not considered Ruth when I checked the RSVP box. Or maybe I had considered her more than I admitted. You look wonderful, she said. So do you. That's because I've spent 9 months bullying my daughter into letting other people do things. Has it worked? No. Then you look wonderful despite adversity. Ruth flashed and squeezed my hand. Someone called her name from across the courtyard. Don't disappear, she ordered. I want to talk to you properly. I won't. She left. I turned toward the bar and nearly walked into a woman carrying a wooden crate of champagne flutes. I stopped short. She didn't. The crate bumped lightly against my hip. Please tell me you're not planning to sue, she said. Her voice was low, dry, and entirely unflustered. She looked somewhere in her mid-30s, with dark hair cut in a blunt collarbone-length line, brown eyes, and a navy suit with the sleeves pushed to her forearms. There was no name tag, but a narrow gold bracelet circled one wrist. I hadn't planned to, I said. Good. I have no liability coverage for guests wandering backward. I was standing still. You were standing still directly in my route. That seems like a route design problem. One corner of her mouth lifted. Then her gaze settled fully on my face. The amusement changed, not disappeared. Changed. Recognition. You're Jenna. It wasn't a question. My shoulders tightened before I could stop them. And you are? Dani Reyes. She shifted the crate against her hip and offered one hand. I shook it. Her palm was warm. Dani, I repeated. The maid of honor. There it was. I let go of her hand. Of course. Her eyebrows rose. That sounded ominous. I'm sure it's not. Strong endorsement. I glanced at the crate. Shouldn't the venue have people for that? It does. They are currently searching for 6 missing table number stands that apparently walked away from a locked storage room. And transporting glassware falls under maid of honor jurisdiction? Everything falls under maid of honor jurisdiction if the bride says your name with enough panic. I smiled despite myself. Dani noticed. I disliked that she noticed. Then Lila called, "Jenna?" I turned. She was standing 10 feet away. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then she came toward me. Her smile was uncertain, in a way I had rarely seen when we were together. Hi. Hi. That was apparently what remained after 4 years of intimacy and 3 years of silence. A single syllable each. Mila hugged me. I had expected the contact to produce something cinematic. It didn't. She smelled different. That was what I noticed. Different perfume. Different shampoo. Maybe just different laundry detergent. My body did not recognize her before my mind did. That helped. When we stepped apart, she searched my face. "I'm really glad you came." I almost didn't. I figured. Your note helped. Good. Oliver joined us, rescuing everyone from whatever came next. "Jenna, finally!" He offered his hand, then immediately seemed to reconsider and opened his arms instead. "Hug? Handshake? I was told you're a hugger, but I suspect my source may be unreliable." I looked at Lila. She lied. Oliver nodded solemnly. Terrible foundation for a marriage. Lila elbowed him. I hugged him. It was impossible to resent a man who had made the first 30 seconds that easy. When I stepped back, Dani was still beside us with the crate. Lila pointed at her. "And you've met Dani." She almost hospitalized me with stemware. Dani stared at me. Oliver laughed. "I tapped your hip." History is written by survivors. "You're both unbearable," Lila said, but she was smiling. Dani's gaze stayed on me for half a second longer than necessary. Then she carried the crate away. I watched her go, only briefly. Mara appeared at my elbow. "Oh no." "What?" "You made the face." "What face?" "The one where you decide someone is irritating and therefore become fascinated with them." "I don't have that face." "You absolutely do." "She's Lila's maid of honor." "Yes." "Which means she knows everything." Mara considered that. "Everything?" "About me." "Nobody knows everything about you. It's practically your defining feature." I looked toward Dani again. She was speaking with a server near the bar, pointing toward the hotel doors. She knew who I was before anyone introduced us. Mara sipped her drink. Of course she did. Why, of course? Because she's Lila's best friend. You were Lila's friend too. You didn't carry a dossier. I knew you personally. That's not comforting. Mara's expression softened. Dani isn't hostile. You know her? Enough. What does that mean? It means she's been in Lila's life for years. She met her during grad school. She's competent, funny, annoying, and physically incapable of watching a problem exist without trying to fix it. That sounds exhausting. You'd hate her. I already do. Mara smiled into her glass. The welcome drinks lasted 3 hours. I survived conversations with people who remembered me as Lila's girlfriend, people who clearly did not remember me at all, and one elderly aunt who asked whether I was the architect. I had never been an architect. Lila and I spoke twice more. Both conversations were pleasant. That was almost stranger than conflict would have been. She asked about my work. I told her I had become the development director for a small public health nonprofit instead of the grant writer I had been when we were together. She told me Oliver taught music at a middle school and had recently started an after-school jazz program. No hidden accusation. No trembling nostalgia. No dramatic acknowledgement of history. Just two women who had once known the contents of each other's medicine cabinets, discussing jobs under decorative lights. At 9:30, people began drifting toward the hotel bar. I stayed behind because Ruth had cornered me into a conversation about my mother. When I finally escaped, I found Dani gathering abandoned glasses from a table. "You know employees are paid to do that," I said. She didn't look up. "I know. Yet here you are." One of the bartenders is moving a chair for Ruth because her knee hurts. I'm maintaining the balance of labor. "Do you always have an explanation ready?" "Only when people ask unnecessary questions." I picked up 2 glasses. Dani glanced at me. "I didn't ask for help." "Neither did the bartender." "Fair." We carried the glasses toward the bar. She set hers down and turned to me. "You doing okay?" The question caught me off guard. Why wouldn't I be? There are at least 15 possible answers. Name 3. "My best friend's mother cried when she saw you. Half the guests know you used to date the bride. And you have spent the last 3 hours making jokes whenever anyone gets within 6 feet of a sincere emotion." I stared at her. Dani grimaced. That sounded less invasive in my head. No, I think it achieved exactly the correct level of invasive. "I can apologize." "Can you?" Not convincingly. Despite myself, I laughed. Then I regretted giving her the satisfaction. She leaned one hip against the bar. "For what it's worth, nobody invited you as entertainment." "I didn't think they did." "You did when you arrived." "How would you know? You scanned the courtyard like you were identifying exits." "Maybe I like fire safety." "Maybe." She watched me for another second. "I wasn't sure inviting you was a good idea." There it was. My smile disappeared. "That's refreshingly direct." "You prefer people lie?" "I prefer strangers not hold committee votes about my emotional stability." "I didn't vote." "But you had an opinion." "Yes." "Based on what?" Dani's mouth tightened slightly. "Leela is my friend." "That isn't an answer." "It's the answer you're getting tonight." I set my empty glass down harder than necessary. "Good to know." I started to leave. "Jenna." I turned. Dani looked genuinely annoyed with herself. "For what it's worth, I wasn't worried you would cause a scene." "What were you worried about?" She hesitated. "That she might be asking too much of you, because she wanted the past to feel settled." That was not what I expected. I folded my arms. And people sometimes call something closure when what they mean is relief." The courtyard had nearly emptied around us. "Do you think that's what Leela wanted?" "I think she wanted to stop treating your existence like a logistical issue." My chest tightened. Not painfully, just enough to make humor harder. "That's almost flattering." Dani studied me. "I told you, I'm not good at apologies." "No, you're excellent at condition reports." She blinked. "How do you know what I do?" "Mara told me you're some kind of museum logistics dictator." "Registrar." I was close, not remotely. "What does a registrar do?" "I coordinate loans, transport, insurance, storage, installation, condition reporting. Basically, I spend my life preventing valuable objects from being damaged by people who insist they're being careful." I smiled. "That explains you." "What does?" "You assume everyone is one careless movement away from disaster." Dani considered that. Maybe. It was the first answer she had given me without armor. I noticed. So did she. She straightened. You should go inside. They're opening the late bar. Are you ordering me? Strongly suggesting. Your natural habitat. Apparently. I went inside. At 11:15, I found myself thinking about her instead of Lila. That was inconvenient. Saturday began with coffee strong enough to remove varnish. Mara knocked on my door at 8:30, already dressed for the rehearsal brunch in a pale blue dress. You're late. The brunch starts at 10. Exactly. That's 90 minutes. I know how long you take. Leave. She did not leave. Instead, she sat on the foot of my bed while I applied mascara. How was last night, after I went upstairs? Fine. Dani? I nearly poked myself in the eye. What about her? You disappeared into the courtyard together. We moved glasses. Scandalous. Then she insulted me. More scandalous. I don't like where your mind lives. Mara grinned. The pre-wedding brunch was held in a private room at a restaurant 2 blocks from the hotel. It was small, mostly family and wedding party, plus a few out-of-town guests Lila apparently considered close enough to include. My place card was between Mara and Ruth. Across from Dani, of course. She arrived 5 minutes after me, carrying a garment bag and 2 small boxes. You're working, I said. She put the boxes on an empty chair. I'm eating. The garment bag suggests otherwise. Oliver's mother forgot her wrap in my room. Why was it in your room? Because last night she said, Dani, don't let me lose this. You're a human lost and found. Dani sat across from me. People find that comforting. You say that like you're building a case. For myself? Yes. Someone should. Ruth beside me laughed. You two have met then? Violently, I said. Dani buttered toast. I nearly killed her with an empty glass. Ruth looked delighted. Lila arrived with Oliver 10 minutes later. Watching them together at a smaller table was harder than the welcome party had been. Not because I wanted Lila back. I didn't. That truth surprised me with its simplicity. What hurt was recognition. Oliver reached for her coffee when she began gesturing and moved it away from the edge of the table without interrupting her story. I had done that. Lila tore the corner from a piece of toast and put it on his plate because she knew he would eat it. She had done that for me. Their habits were not ours, but they rhymed. I had spent years imagining that being replaced meant another person had stepped into an outline I had left behind. Watching them made me understand how self-centered that idea had been. Oliver wasn't occupying my old place. He had a place I had never had. Their relationship had its own language. The realization should have been freeing. Instead, it exposed something uglier. Lila had built another life. I had built one too, technically. Apartment, career, friends, dates that sometimes became second dates and almost never became fourth ones. But I had become very good at arranging a life that never required me to ask anyone to stay. Halfway through brunch, Ruth turned to Oliver. Have you warned your mother about the dance? Oliver groaned. Please don't. What dance? I asked. Lila covered her face. Ruth leaned closer to me. His mother has decided they need a family dance after the first dance. That sounds normal. It would be, except she has choreographed it. Dani said, I have the video. Oliver pointed at her. Delete it. No. You're supposed to be Lila's friend. I am. I have no obligation to you. Lila laughed so hard she nearly spilled her coffee. Dani reached across and moved the cup. Without thinking. It was such a familiar act of caretaking that I smiled. Dani caught me. What? Nothing. You were smirking. I was observing. That sounds suspiciously like museum work. I'm learning. Her expression softened, just slightly. After brunch, the wedding party had to leave for the mill. I expected to spend the afternoon with Mara exploring downtown. Instead, Lila's father found me near the restaurant entrance. Jenna. Peter Grant looked older than he had 3 years ago. His hair had thinned, and he moved a little more carefully after the stroke he had suffered during the second year Lila and I were together. I hugged him. He held on. You came. Apparently, everyone thought I might bolt. We hoped you wouldn't. The words landed heavily. Peter stepped back and touched my shoulder. You were good to us. I could not think of a joke quickly enough. Peter, I'm not trying to make this strange. You're succeeding, accidentally. He laughed. There she is. I smiled. He glanced toward Lila, who was talking to Oliver near the curb. She was afraid sending that invitation would hurt you. I know. I told her not sending it might hurt too. That surprised me. Was this your idea? No, but I encouraged it. Why? Peter's expression became thoughtful. Because you were family for a while. Then you weren't, and everyone behaved as though acknowledging that was dangerous. After enough time, it started to feel cowardly. Cowardly. The word followed me back toward the hotel. Mara got pulled into helping Keisha with a dress emergency, so I ended up alone in the lobby. I was checking messages when someone sat beside me. Dani. She had changed into jeans and a black t-shirt, her formal suit folded over one arm. You look unemployed, I said. I have 48 minutes before hair and makeup. Shouldn't you be at the venue? I was sent back for Leela's earrings. Of course you were. She held up a small velvet box. I am apparently the only person trusted to transport objects under 2 inches. Professional overlap. Finally, someone respects my training. I smiled. She leaned back in the chair. Peter talked to you. How do you know? You have the face. What face? The one where somebody said something sincere and you haven't decided how to make fun of it yet. You're getting obnoxiously observant. Occupational hazard. Wrong profession. I know. I was testing you. I turned my phone face down. He said not inviting me would have felt cowardly. Dani nodded. Sounds like Peter. Did you know he encouraged her? No. Did you encourage her? No. Discourage her? At first. I waited. Dani looked toward the lobby windows. I asked Lila what she wanted from having you there. And? She said she wanted to look at the people in the room and not feel like she had edited her own life to make everybody comfortable. That irritated me more than I expected. That's very poetic. You don't like it. I don't like being used as proof of emotional growth. Fair. Also, she broke up with me. I know. Do you know how? Dani's eyes returned to mine. Some of it. Her version. At first, there was something in the way she said it. At first? The elevator opened behind us. Several guests came out talking loudly. Dani stood. I have to get these to Lila. Convenient? Very. She took 2 steps, then stopped. Jenna. What? I don't think you were invited so Lila could feel generous.
That's a weirdly specific reassurance.
It's the one I have time for. Then she walked away. I watched her cross the lobby. Again. This was becoming a pattern I did not intend to discuss with Mara. If you'd like the fuller, more intimate, and uncensored version of this story, you can find it on my Patreon page through the link in the description. By 4:30, I was at the mill. The building sat beside the river, a long stretch of old red brick softened by tall windows and pale climbing vines. Inside, exposed beams crossed the ceiling, above polished concrete floors. The ceremony space occupied what had once been the main production room. It was beautiful, without trying to disguise what it had been. I liked that. Maybe more than I wanted to. Guests arrived through the side courtyard. I found Mara near the seating chart, where she adjusted my necklace and told me not to look like I was attending a deposition. I'm smiling. That's not a smile. That's polite dental visibility. I regret coming with you. You came alone. Exactly. The ceremony began at 5:30. Dani entered first with Oliver's brother. She wore a dark green dress that fell simply from one shoulder. No glitter, no elaborate styling. Her hair was tucked behind one ear. She looked toward the front. Then, for no obvious reason, toward the guests. Her eyes found mine. She didn't smile. Neither did I. But the moment lasted long enough that Mara's elbow touched my ribs. I ignored her. Lila walked down the aisle with Peter. I expected some delayed catastrophe inside myself. Instead, I cried. Quietly. Not because she was marrying someone else. Because Peter was walking beside her. Because 3 years earlier, when he had been relearning how to button his shirts after his stroke, Lila had once sat on our kitchen floor and sobbed into my shoulder because she was terrified he would never walk her down an aisle. I had held her and promised he would. Now he did. I pressed a finger beneath one eye. Across the front row, Dani noticed. She looked away before anyone else could. The ceremony was short. Oliver's vows made half the room laugh. Lila's made Ruth cry. They kissed. Everyone stood. Nothing broke. No one ran. No old love resurrected itself beneath dramatic lighting. The world continued. At the reception, my place card put me at a table with Mara, Ben, Keisha, 2 college friends, and a couple I vaguely remembered from Lila's 26th birthday. Dani sat at the head table. I told myself I was relieved. During dinner, I caught myself looking toward her 4 times. The 5th time, she was already looking at me. She lifted her wine glass. I lifted mine. Mara saw. Of course she saw. No. I didn't turn. I didn't say anything. You inhaled judgmentally. I inhaled air. You make air judgmental. She's hot. I set my glass down. Mara. She is. That is irrelevant. Why? Because she is the maid of honor at my ex-girlfriend's wedding. That describes a social role, not a communicable disease. Can we discuss literally anything else? Sure. Your ex looks happy. I stared at her. She smiled innocently. Dani's speech came after dessert. She stood beside Lila with one hand around the microphone and waited until the room quieted. I was told maid of honor speeches should be affectionate, concise, and legally non-actionable, which has eliminated most of my material. Laughter spread through the room. Lila covered her face. Dani continued. I met Lila 9 years ago because she borrowed a pen from me during orientation and did not return it. That's a lie, Lila called. I have documentation. More laughter. Dani smiled, then looked at Oliver. Over the years, I've watched Lila become many things. A person who answers messages on time occasionally. A woman who now owns more than one saucepan. Someone who has learned that asking for help does not automatically create a debt. Her tone changed on the last line. Not dramatically, just enough. And then she met Oliver, who somehow understood very quickly that loving Lila does not mean making her smaller or easier. It means standing nearby while she becomes more herself. The room quieted. Oliver's expression softened. Dani glanced at Lila. I've spent a lot of my life believing love was mostly about being useful. Showing up, remembering, carrying the earrings somebody forgot. Lila laughed through tears. Dani did too. But you two reminded me there is another part. Sometimes love is trusting someone enough to let them see what you want before you've turned it into something practical. My attention sharpened. Dani looked down at her notes. Then she raised her glass. So here's to a marriage where neither of you has to earn your place by being useful. And here's to asking clearly for the things you hope the other person will say yes to. Everyone raised their glasses. I did too. Dani's eyes crossed the room. Found mine. This time, I looked away first. The dancing began 20 minutes later. I danced with Mara, then Ben, then Ruth, who lasted one song and blamed her knee. Lila's family dance occurred at 9:30. It was every bit as terrible as promised. Oliver's mother had choreographed coordinated clapping. Peter lost the sequence and simply spun Ruth. Dani stood beside the dance floor laughing so hard she had one hand over her mouth. I moved beside her. Your video won't even be necessary. She looked at me. I'm recording it anyway. Blackmail? Historical preservation. Your museum is strange. My museum has standards. The song ended. Guests surged onto the floor. Dani and I were pushed closer together. Her bare arm brushed mine. Neither of us moved. Your speech was good, I said. Thank you. Suspiciously sincere. Don't ruin it. I wouldn't dream of it. She turned slightly toward me. Did you mean it? What? That you liked it. Yes. Good. There were easier things I could have said next. I chose none of them. The part about asking for what you want was interesting. Dani's mouth curved. That sounded like criticism. It wasn't. Then what was it? Observation. Again with the museum language. You're contagious. Someone bumped my shoulder. Dani caught my elbow. Her fingers stayed there. Careful, she said. I thought you weren't responsible for guest safety. I revised the policy. Her hand left my arm. I felt the absence more clearly than I should have. I need air, I said. That bad? The clapping injured me. Dani laughed. I stepped toward the side doors. 3 minutes later, she followed me outside. The courtyard was quieter than the reception room, though music still came through the brick walls as a softened pulse. I leaned against the railing overlooking the river. Dani stood beside me. You didn't have to follow me. I know. That answer mattered. I turned toward her. She had taken off her shoes. She held them by the straps in one hand. I thought maid of honor regulations required constant visual contact with the bride. Lila is dancing with her husband. Husband. Still strange? No. That was true. Dani studied me. You cried during the ceremony. I looked back toward the river. You really don't miss much. It's my job. No, your job is knowing whether a sculpture has a new scratch. People are easier. That's terrifying. She smiled. Why did you cry? Peter. Understanding crossed her face. Lila told me you were there when he had his stroke. I was. You helped a lot. Everyone helped. That wasn't what she said. I felt myself go still. What did she say? Dani set her shoes on the ground. Are you sure you want to do this tonight? What is this? Talk about the part where I know things about your old relationship because my best friend was in it. You've been implying that since yesterday. I've been trying not to. You're doing an awful job, she sighed. After you two broke up, Lila was angry. I know. She said you made everything too easy. I laughed once, without humor. That's rich. She thought you didn't care enough to fight. She ended it. I know. Did she include that detail? Yes. How generous. Dani's gaze sharpened. You're doing it. Doing what? Turning every sentence into a joke sharp enough that nobody can touch what it means. I pushed away from the railing. You don't know me. No. Then stop talking like you do. Fair. I took 2 steps. Dani did not follow. That irritated me, so I turned back. She told me she'd spent a year waiting for me to want the same future she did. I told her I did. She said wanting it in theory wasn't the same as showing up for it. Dani stayed quiet. We fought for 2 hours. She said she was tired of asking whether I would move in properly, instead of keeping half my things at my apartment. Tired of asking whether I wanted to talk about marriage someday. Tired of every answer being, maybe later. I folded my arms tightly. Then she said maybe we were keeping each other from finding people who actually wanted the same things. Dani's face changed. I hated that she knew the rest. She told you. Some. I said if that was what she needed, then fine. Yes. Did she tell you I helped her pack the things she had at my apartment? Dani's voice was quiet. Yes. Did she tell you I carried the box to her car? Yes. Did she tell you she asked me, right before she left, if I was really going to let 4 years end like that? Dani didn't answer. I told her she had already ended it. The music inside changed songs. I could hear people cheering. I didn't ask her to stay, I said. Dani's expression held no triumph. No pity either. That helped. I know, I laughed bitterly. Apparently everybody knows. No. Her voice sharpened. That's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? Leela told me something different 2 years later. I stopped. Dani looked toward the building, as if confirming we were still alone. She said she'd spent a long time telling herself you hadn't fought because you didn't love her enough. I stared at her. That sounds familiar. Then she said she eventually realized you never fought for anything by asking. I said nothing. Dani continued carefully. She said you worked twice as hard. You showed up early. You solved problems before people could ask. You remembered everybody else's deadlines. But if you had to say, I need this, you disappeared behind dignity. A knot formed in my throat. Dani's words were too precise. She said that? Yes. When? Almost 2 years after the breakup. We were talking about something else. She brought you up. Why? Because I was making the same mistake. That surprised me. Dani rubbed her thumb across the edge of her bracelet. I had been offered a job in Boston. I wanted it. I also didn't want to move because my mother had been having a hard year, and Leela was going through something at work, and I had convinced myself everyone needed me exactly where I was. Did you take it? No. Do you regret it? Some days. The answer came fast, honest. And Leela compared that to me? Not exactly. She said we were opposites with the same bad habit. You refused to ask people to choose you. I refused to admit when choosing me might inconvenience someone. That was too much truth from a woman I had known one day. I looked away. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you've spent 3 years believing Leela remembered the breakup as proof you didn't care. My jaw tightened. Didn't she? Not anymore. What difference does that make? Maybe none. Exactly. But maybe you deserve to know that the story changed after you stopped hearing it. The sentence landed harder than anything else she had said. The story changed after you stopped hearing it. I stared out at the river. I thought she won. Dani frowned. What? The breakup. That's not a thing adults are supposed to say. I know. Good. I almost laughed. Almost. She moved on first. She stayed close to everyone. She got engaged. I kept thinking that meant she had been right, that she had seen something about me before I did. Which was? That I was easier to leave than to build a life with. Dani went very still. I regretted saying it immediately. There. That was the point where I normally made a joke. Instead, I let the sentence exist. Dani stepped closer. Jenna. I know. Dramatic. No. I don't usually say things like that. I noticed. Can we pretend I didn't? No. I laughed once. You're very bad at making people comfortable. That's not what I was trying to do. What were you trying to do? See you accurately. The answer stripped the humor out of me. Dani was close enough that I could see a tiny freckle near her left eyebrow. I remembered the question that had been building in me since the lobby. Why? She didn't answer. Why do you care whether you see me accurately? Her gaze dropped to my mouth for half a second, then returned to my eyes. I felt my entire body become alert. Dani, don't. Don't what? Ask me that if you're going to make a joke when I answer. That irritated me because it was fair. I won't. She held my gaze. I don't know yet. It was not romantic. It was better, because it was true. I nodded. Then someone opened the courtyard door and called her name. Dani closed her eyes. Of course. Your jurisdiction. Apparently. She picked up her shoes. At the door, she turned back. Jenna? Yeah? For the record, I don't think you were easy to leave. Then she disappeared inside. I stayed outside another 5 minutes. When I returned, Mara took one look at me and said, "Oh, this is worse than I thought." I refused to discuss it. For nearly an hour, Dani and I avoided each other. Not dramatically. We simply occupied opposite sides of the reception while remaining aware of the distance. At 11:30, Lila found me near the dessert table. Walk with me? The request froze me. Sure. We went into the corridor beside the reception hall. Lila held her shoes in one hand. Apparently, formal footwear surrendered early at this wedding. She leaned against the brick wall. "Thank you for coming." "You've already said that." "I know." "You don't have to keep proving the invitation was sincere." Her mouth tilted. "You haven't changed as much as I thought." "That's devastating." "There. That." "What?" "The joke, right before the sentence gets dangerous." I stared at her. "Did you and Dani attend a seminar?" Lila's eyebrows lifted. "Dani?" "Nothing." That was a mistake. Lila knew me too well. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "What happened?" "Nothing happened." "That's not what I asked." "Then ask a less invasive question." Lila laughed. Actually laughed. The sound loosened something old between us. "I missed that," she said. I looked at her. She shook her head immediately. "Not like that." "I know." "Good." We stood in silence. Then she said, "I owe you an apology." My instinct was to refuse before hearing it. I stopped myself. "For what?" "The way I ended things." "You weren't wrong to end them." "That's not the same as saying I did it well." I looked down the corridor. We both did things badly. "See, that's what you always did." "What?" "Made things equal so nobody had to owe you anything." The words hit with uncomfortable accuracy. "Lila, I'm not trying to reopen it." "I know. I just don't want to get married today without saying this once while you're actually in front of me." I nodded. She breathed in. "I needed things from you that I didn't know how to ask for without turning them into tests. Then, when you failed tests you didn't know you were taking, I got angry. You asked me to move in." "Yes, and you said eventually." I was scared. "I know that now." I looked at her sharply. She smiled sadly. "Turns out people learn things after 28. Unfair." "Terrible system." I laughed. She continued. "I thought your calmness meant you didn't care. Later I understood it meant you were terrified of needing me more than I needed you." My throat tightened. "Did Dani tell you we talked?" "No." "Then how—" "I've had 3 years to think." "Right, of course." Lila looked toward the reception doors. "I am very happy, Jenna." "I can see that." "And I'm glad you're here, not because it proves anything about me." I smiled slightly. "That sounds defensive." "It is. Dani accused me of trying to make the past aesthetically tidy." I stared at her. "She said that?" "More or less." "That's annoyingly accurate." "I know." Lila smiled. Then her expression softened. "I didn't replace you." The sentence hurt in a place I hadn't known was still tender. "I know." "Do you?" I wanted to say yes again. Instead, I forced myself to tell the truth. "I'm learning." Lila nodded. "Good." She hugged me. This time it felt like goodbye in the way goodbyes were supposed to feel. Not erasure, not failure, just an ending that no longer needed to prove who had been more hurt. When we separated, she looked toward the ballroom. "You should dance." "I'm terrible." "You weren't." "You were in love." "That affects rhythm?" "Apparently." She grinned. Then she walked back toward her husband. I stayed in the corridor. A minute later, another figure appeared at the far end. Dani. She stopped when she saw me. "Am I interrupting?" "Leela just left." "Oh." She approached slowly. "Everything okay?" "Yes." That sounded real. It was. Dani leaned against the opposite wall. What did she want? To apologize. And? I let her. Good. I glanced at her. You look disappointed. I don't. You do. I'm tired. You're lying. Dani laughed quietly. You're getting better at this. At what? Seeing me accurately. The phrase hung between us. I stepped closer. That bothers you? Currently. Why? She looked down the corridor. I knew the answer before she gave it. Because suddenly, I had learned her trick too. Dani could say anything if it was about someone else. The moment the subject became what she wanted, she began checking exits. You followed me outside before, I said. Yes? You didn't have to. No. You told me things Leela had said years ago. Yes. You told me I wasn't easy to leave. Her jaw tightened. Jenna. Why? Don't. That's the second time you've said that tonight. Because you're asking questions you already know the answer to. Maybe I'd like you to say it. That landed. Dani pushed away from the wall. You don't get to do that. Do what? Spend the entire weekend refusing to say what you want, then demand that I do it because suddenly you're curious. I felt heat rise into my face. That's not fair. No, it isn't. She stepped closer. But neither is you pretending you haven't noticed this. This? Her laugh was brief and sharp. Exactly. I folded my arms. So what do you want me to say? Nothing. Convenient. Jenna. No, you don't get to criticize me for hiding and then hide behind being Lila's maid of honor. Her expression hardened. You think that's what I'm doing? I think you have a reason for every decision, as long as the reason is somebody else. Dani went silent. I knew I had hit something. I should have stopped. Instead, because I was angry and attracted to her and newly aware of every cowardly habit I had spent years calling composure, I kept going. You carry earrings, you move chairs, you rescue abandoned wraps, you give speeches about asking for what you want, then the second anyone asks what you want, you turn into a museum security system. You're being an ass. Probably. Definitely. I nodded. Fine. I turned to leave. Dani caught my wrist. Not hard, just enough. Jenna. I looked at her hand. She released me immediately. Sorry. I should have walked away. Instead, I said, I don't want you to be sorry. Dani's expression changed. I felt suddenly terrified. Good. Maybe terror was what happened when you stopped hiding behind dignity. I don't know what this is, I said. Her voice was quiet. Neither do I. I don't know if it's the wedding or the history or the fact that you keep irritating me until I accidentally tell you the truth. That last one is my best quality. Don't make me laugh. Sorry. You're not. No. I looked at her. What I do know is that I've spent the last 24 hours finding you in every room. Dani stopped breathing for a second. There. I had said what I wanted before she did. It felt terrible. It felt clean. Her voice dropped. Tell me to go back inside. I didn't. Jenna. I don't want you to. Dani crossed the space between us. She put one hand against my jaw and kissed me first. There was nothing tentative about the decision. The kiss itself was careful only in the sense that she gave me time to refuse. I didn't. I caught the front of her dress and kissed her back. The corridor disappeared. The reception disappeared. The fact that we were standing 50 feet from my ex-girlfriend's wedding reception became abstract information with no immediate practical use. Dani's thumb moved once along my cheek. I felt her smile against my mouth when I pulled her closer. Then she stopped. Abruptly. Her forehead rested against mine. Oh, that was a terrible idea. I was still holding her dress. Strong review. She laughed once, breathlessly. Don't. You kissed me. I am aware. Just establishing the chain of custody. That made her laugh again. Then her expression tightened. We cannot do this here. The words hit me differently than she intended. My hands fell away. Right. Dani noticed immediately. That's not what I meant. What did you mean? I mean, this is Lila's wedding. Yes, I had located the wedding. Jenna. And you're her maid of honor. Yes. And I'm the ex. I know who everyone is. Then what's the problem? The problem is I kissed my best friend's ex-girlfriend in a hallway during her reception. After she married someone else. That doesn't make timing irrelevant. I felt the old defense rising. Cold, efficient, familiar. Fine. Dani's face changed. Don't do that. Do what? Become agreeable when you're hurt. I'm not hurt. You are. You don't know me well enough to make that diagnosis. I know enough. I stepped back. Congratulations. She closed her eyes. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Me? No. The answer came fast. Turning you into something reckless I did because the weekend was emotionally intense. That stopped me. Dani rubbed both hands over her face. I like you. I said nothing. She lowered her hands. I like you enough that I don't want this to become a story people tell about Lila's wedding. That softened some of my anger. Not all. What do you want then? Dani opened her mouth. Closed it. There was her weakness again. Brilliant when the answer belonged to someone else. Useless when it belonged to her. I don't know. I nodded. Okay. Jenna, no. That's actually okay. You're doing it again. No, I'm not. I forced myself to keep my voice steady. I told you what I wanted. You don't know what you want. That's allowed. Her eyes held mine. What did you want? The question terrified me more than the kiss. I answered anyway. I wanted you to kiss me again. Dani's lips parted. I smiled without humor. See? Growth. Then I walked back into the reception. She did not follow. For the next hour, I danced. Not because I was fine. Because standing still felt impossible. Mara asked once if I wanted to talk. I said no. She accepted that, which was how I knew I looked worse than I thought. At 1 a.m, the reception ended. Guests filtered toward buses back to the hotel. I was waiting near the coat check when Lila appeared beside me. Her veil was gone. Her lipstick had faded. She looked exhausted and happy. Then she saw my face. What happened? Nothing. She stared. I sighed. I kissed Dani. Lila's mouth opened, then closed. I realized I had phrased it wrong. She kissed me first. That did not improve Lila's expression. When? About 2 hours ago. Where? Does geography help? Jenna. Hallway. Lila glanced toward the ballroom. I expected anger. What I got was something more complicated. Oh. That's it? No, I have other sounds. I almost laughed. She rubbed one hand over her forehead. I did not see that coming. Neither did I. Does Mara know? Probably psychically. Lila looked at me again. Do you like her? There was no point lying now. Yes. Her face tightened, not possessively, something older. That's weird. Fair. You're my ex. Still true. She's my best friend. Also true. And I'm standing here in a wedding dress. I can see why the symbolism feels aggressive. That made her laugh despite herself. Then she became serious. Is this about me? No. The answer came so easily that both of us noticed. Lila nodded slowly. Okay. Are you upset? I don't know yet. Also fair. She looked toward the doors. I think I'm more worried than angry. About? Both of you. Why? Because Dani can turn wanting anything into a moral crisis. I almost smiled. And you, she continued, can make being rejected your private religion. I stared at her. That's rude. It's my wedding. I get one. I looked away. Lila touched my arm. Don't use each other to rewrite what happened with us. I don't think we are. Good. And for what it's worth, I don't need permission. She met my eyes. No. I waited. Then Lila smiled, tired and crooked. You really don't. The bus ride back to the hotel took 15 minutes. Dani sat at the front beside Ruth. I sat near the back with Mara. We did not speak. At the hotel, I went directly upstairs. At 8 the next morning, someone knocked on my door. I expected Mara. It was Dani. She wore jeans, a gray sweater, and the expression of a woman who had not slept enough. Hi. Hi. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She entered but stayed near the door. I talked to Lila. So did I. I know. Did she give you permission? The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Dani flinched. That's not fair. I know. Then why say it? Because I'm still angry. Okay. I crossed my arms. What did you talk about? She asked if I liked you. And? I said yes. Something inside me eased, despite myself. Dani continued. Then she told me I was being ridiculous. About liking me? About acting as though liking you was an ethical violation. That sounded like Lila. I agreed with her. I blinked. Dani took a breath. But I also realized something. Which is? I did exactly what I always do. Made a spreadsheet? Worse. Condition report? Jenna. Sorry. Her mouth twitched. Then she became serious again. I decided what would be best for everyone, without asking what anyone actually wanted. I said nothing. I decided Lila might be hurt. I decided you might regret it. I decided the timing meant anything between us was automatically irresponsible. And And all of that let me avoid saying the simple part. I waited. Dani looked directly at me. I want to see you after this weekend. The sentence was plain. No speech, no metaphor. It was exactly what I needed. I want that too. Dani smiled. Relief moved across her face. Then she glanced toward the hallway. Breakfast starts in 20 minutes. Romantic. I'm not asking you to breakfast. My stomach dropped slightly. Dani's smile widened. I'm asking you to leave with me after breakfast and get coffee somewhere nobody knows either of us. Oh. I want our first date to contain 0 brides. Technically, Leela is a wife now. You're impossible. You kissed me. I'm beginning to understand the consequences. I stepped closer. Dani didn't move away. Are you going to kiss me again? Not yet. I stared at her. She smiled. I told Lila I would help load gifts into her parents' car. Of course you did. Some character flaws resolve gradually. I laughed. At the door, Dani turned. Also, I'm not hiding this. What? Us. If there is an us. I felt the sentence settle. If there is an us, I repeated. I don't want you to wonder whether I'm only brave in hallways. Then she left. I stood in the doorway smiling like an idiot. Mara emerged from her room 3 doors down. She looked at me, then at Dani's retreating back, then at me again. Oh, thank God. Go away. No. Please. Absolutely not. The post-wedding brunch lasted 90 minutes. Dani and I sat at different tables. It did not matter. The room knew anyway. Not because we were touching, because every time one of us spoke, the other listened. Lila noticed. Oliver noticed. Mara noticed so aggressively that I considered throwing a croissant at her. When brunch ended, guests began hugging goodbye. Ruth held me longer than necessary. Peter kissed my cheek. Oliver shook my hand, then leaned closer. For what it's worth, I have no idea what's happening. But Lila has said Dani's name 17 times this morning. I laughed. That sounds dangerous. Good luck. Lila was last. We stood near the hotel entrance. You okay? She asked. Yes. Actually? Actually. She nodded toward Dani, who was putting a suitcase into the back of her car. She's good. I know. Annoying. Very. Bossy. Extremely. Lila smiled. Then this might work. I laughed. Then she hugged me. Be happy, Jenna. The old version of me would have made a joke. I didn't. You too. We stepped apart. Oliver took her hand. They left. Dani came toward me. Ready? For coffee. You made it sound very important upstairs. It is. Then, yes. We walked 6 blocks to a small cafe near the river. No one there knew Lila. No one knew I was an ex. No one knew Dani had spent the previous night standing beside a bride in photographs. We ordered coffee and sat outside beneath a striped awning. For a few minutes, neither of us mentioned the wedding. Dani told me about a crate that had once arrived at her museum with a 17th century portrait packed upside down. I told her about a donor who had once pledged $20,000 to my nonprofit and then tried to pay in cryptocurrency no one in our finance department had heard of. She laughed. I liked the sound even more outside a wedding. Eventually, Dani said, "This is weird." The coffee? Us. Strong start to a date. You know what I mean. I do. She traced one finger around the rim of her cup. I don't want Lila to be the most interesting thing we have in common. She isn't. Dani looked up. You already know that? Yes. How? I considered pretending the answer was complicated. Then, I chose better. Because I've been sitting here 40 minutes and forgot to think about her. Dani smiled slowly. Okay. Your turn. What? Say something uncomfortable. Why? I've done a lot of emotional labor this weekend. She laughed. Fine. She sat back. I was attracted to you Friday night. That isn't uncomfortable for me. It is for me. Why? Because you accused me of nearly killing you with glassware. Chemistry. Also, I thought you were going to be difficult. I am difficult. Not the way I expected. What did you expect? She hesitated. Lila's first version of you. Cold? Detached. And then I watched Ruth hug you and you almost cried. I watched Peter talk to you. I watched you make Oliver comfortable even though nobody would have blamed you for being awkward. Her gaze held mine. I started wondering how many things I'd accepted about you because I thought loyalty required it. That mattered. Did you defend me? I asked. Against what? Leela, years ago. Dani smiled faintly. Once. When? About 6 months after the breakup. She was complaining that you hadn't called on her birthday. I didn't. I know. Why would you defend me? Because she had broken up with you. Excellent legal reasoning. I said maybe she didn't get to leave you, and also demand proof that you still cared. I stared at her. You really said that? Yes. Did she get mad? Very. I think I like you. That's fortunate. We spent 2 hours there, then 3. By the time we walked back toward the hotel, the wedding had become something that had happened, rather than the place we were still trapped inside. At the corner, Dani stopped. My car is there. Mine too. Neither of us moved. When are you back in Boston? She asked. Tonight. I live in Boston. I am aware. Right. The museum dictator has a publicly available biography. You looked me up? I smiled. After Friday. Dani looked delighted. That's incredibly flattering. Don't enjoy it. Too late. She stepped closer. This counts as after the wedding. Technically. Good. Then she kissed me again. Slowly this time. No panic, no hallway, no reception music behind us. When we separated, I was smiling. Dani touched my cheek. Dinner Wednesday? That specific? I'm practicing wanting things clearly. Wednesday works. 7? Yes. Good. She took 3 steps toward her car. Dani. She turned. I want you to know I would have said yes even if you hadn't scheduled it like a freight shipment. She smiled. Progress for both of us. Wednesday dinner became Saturday at the museum. Dani refused to call it a date because she was technically working for the first hour. I called it a date because she brought me coffee exactly the way I had ordered it in Providence. The museum occupied an old stone building near the harbor, and I followed her through back corridors guests never saw. She showed me storage rooms lined with rolling racks, climate monitors, padded carts, and crates marked with arrows. "This is your kingdom," I said. "My deeply underfunded kingdom." She stopped beside a large wooden crate. "This arrived from Madrid last month." "What's in it?" "A painting worth more than both our apartments combined." "Together?" "By a humiliating margin." I reached toward the crate. Dani slapped my hand away. I laughed. "There she is." "Do not touch registered objects." "I touched the box." "The box is part of the transport system." "You say things that sound sexual when you're angry." Dani stared at me. I grinned. "Jenna." "Sorry." "You are not." "No." After work, we got noodles from a place around the corner. 2 weeks later, she came to an event for my nonprofit. It was not glamorous. We were launching a mobile vaccination partnership, and I spent most of the evening introducing donors to nurses and pretending I had not been awake since 5:30. At 9, after the last guest left, I found Dani in the hallway carrying 3 folded signs. I laughed. "What? You found things to carry?" "They were in the way." "Of course." She put them down. Then she took my hand. That was new. Not the hand-holding, the publicness. One of my coworkers passed us. Dani did not let go. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. "Don't make it weird," she said. "I'm not." "You are smiling." "I smile." "Not like that." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you." Her expression softened. "For what?" "Not making me wonder." Dani understood. She lifted my hand and kissed my knuckles once. "You're welcome." A month after the wedding, we had our first real argument. It happened because Dani canceled dinner with me to help her mother reorganize a storage unit. Not because her mother had asked, because Dani had decided she needed help. I had already ordered wine when her message arrived. "Sorry, Mom's storage situation is a disaster. Can we reschedule?" Old Jenna would have typed, "Of course." Old Jenna would have spent the evening pretending the irritation was beneath her. Then she would have remembered it forever. Instead, I called. Dani answered on the second ring. "Hey. Are you actually needed?" Silence. "What?" "Did your mother ask you to cancel our dinner?" "No." "Is there an emergency?" "No." "Then I'm annoyed." Dani went quiet. I almost backed down. I didn't. "I planned around tonight," I said. "I wanted to see you." Another silence. Then Dani said, "You're right." I blinked. That was disappointing. "What?" "I had several arguments prepared." She laughed. "I'm sorry." "Are you coming?" "Give me 30 minutes. She arrived in 26. Her mother survived the storage unit. Our relationship survived my first direct complaint. These developments seemed related. By December, Dani had a toothbrush at my apartment. By January, I had a key to hers. We did not rush moving in. That mattered to me, for obvious reasons. One Friday night, snow threatened but never arrived, leaving the city wet and cold. Dani came to my apartment after work, carrying takeout and a bottle of wine. I had spent the day fighting with a grant budget and was still in leggings and an old sweatshirt. She put the food on my counter. "You look terrible." "Thank you." I meant tired. "Excellent recovery." Dani came behind me while I was opening containers and wrapped her arms around my waist. I leaned back against her. "That day? Stupid day. Worse. Much." She kissed the side of my neck. I closed my eyes.
The warmth of her body behind mine made the apartment feel smaller in the best way.
Do you want to talk about it? She asked. No. Do you want noodles? Yes. Do you want me? I turned in her arms. She smiled. Very direct. I'm advanced now. I slid my hands beneath the edges of her coat. Yes. The kiss began in the kitchen and moved slowly down the hall. There was no urgency from borrowed time. No wedding corridor, no fear that someone would open a door and turn us into gossip. Dani helped me out of my sweatshirt. I unbuttoned her blouse. We laughed when her bracelet caught briefly in my hair. She kissed my shoulder, then my mouth, then paused. Still yes? Very. Her smile against my skin was warm. We moved toward the bedroom without hurrying. Later, beneath the blankets, I lay with my head against her chest, while rain tapped the window. Dani traced slow lines along my back. This is better than the hallway, I said. She laughed. High bar. Terrible lighting. Also, your ex was 40 feet away. I had forgotten. That's concerning. I lifted my head. I'm serious. So am I. No, I mean, I barely connect you to her now. Dani's fingers stilled. Good. You? She thought for a moment. I think of her as the reason we were physically in the same place. Romantic. But not the reason I noticed you. I smiled. Better. She kissed my forehead. And definitely not the reason I stayed. That was the kind of sentence I once would have stored privately and pretended not to need. Instead, I kissed her and said, I'm glad you stayed. In February, an envelope arrived at my apartment. Cream paper, my name written across the front in handwriting I recognized. For one absurd second, I thought the universe had developed a repetitive sense of humor. Then I saw the return address. Lila and Oliver. Inside was a thank you card from the wedding. The lateness was so extraordinary that I laughed before reading it. Jenna, apparently married life did not make us better at thank you notes. Thank you for coming. I mean that more now than I did when I wrote the invitation. Also, Oliver insists I tell you he still thinks the cryptocurrency donor story is insane. Love, Lila and Oliver. Behind the card was something else. My original RSVP. Yes, joyfully accepts. My check mark sat beside it. Across the bottom, Lila had written, Found this mixed in with the cards and thought you might want the evidence. I stood at my kitchen counter holding it. Dani came in from the living room. What? I handed it to her. She read it. Then she looked at me. You joyfully accepted? I objected to the adverb. But you checked it. I was under emotional duress. Dani smiled. Can I have this? Why? I want to preserve it. I stared. You are not registering my RSVP card. It's a significant object. In what collection? Mine. I laughed. She took it from me and carried it toward her desk. I followed. What are you doing? Protective sleeve. You own protective sleeves at home? She looked offended. Of course. You're deeply strange. You like me. I do. She slid the RSVP card into a clear archival sleeve, then held it up. There. I leaned against the desk. You know what's ridiculous? Many things. I almost threw that away. Dani looked at the card. Good thing you didn't. I looked at her. At the woman who had first known me as somebody else's history. At the woman who had distrusted the version of me she had been given enough to look closer. At the woman who had kissed me first, and then scared herself with wanting something that had no useful justification. At the woman who had learned to say, "Dinner, Wednesday, 7?" At myself, who had learned that saying, "I want you to stay," did not make staying less meaningful. "No," I said. Good thing I answered it. Dani slipped the RSVP into a small desk drawer. Then she turned toward me. "By the way, are you free Friday?" "Maybe." Her eyes narrowed. I smiled. "Yes, I'm free." "I was going to ask you to dinner." "I want to go." Dani's expression softened into the smile I had learned to search for long after I stopped searching rooms for her. "Good." She kissed me. And for once, I did not wait for anyone else to decide what the answer meant.